Okay, so up until now we've been ignoring the high score pretty much, and now I do want to start looking into the high score. Now the high score view model should be accessed by several views, so it would be easier if it would be more of a global nature. So what I'm going to do is go to adding game app, the actual entry point of the app. And I'm going to create within this struct a state object called high score view model. And I'm going to initialize it to high score view model. And this, in a sense, is going to be some kind of global high score view model, a certain class that several views will access. Okay? Now I want to inject it into all of the children of main view. So let's enter environment object, high score view model. Okay, next let's command click on main view and jump to definition. So I want to go to the main view and inject the high score view model into the preview. Otherwise the app will crash. So I'm going down to the preview, and down here, environment object, and I'm going to create an instance of high score view model. Okay, next, we see in the main view we have two interesting views, the addition game view and the high score view. I'm going to command click on addition game view, jump to definition, and first of all, before I do anything, I want to go down to the preview and add dot environment object high score view model. Otherwise, the app will simply crash. And now I actually want access to the state object that was in the main view. So what we're going to do is go back to the structure addition game view. So command click. I can just scroll up, right? But jump to definition. And now let's add an environment object. And let's let it be a private variable. I'm going to call this high score view model. And it will be of type high score view model. And this will listen to that sort of global high score view model that we initialized at the entry point of the app. Okay, great. And the next thing I want to do is add a new state variable. Now this is going to start being related to the high score. So let's do high score view is presented. And I'm going to send it to false, so it's not presented. And I also want a variable called name or player name. Let's just keep it name. And initially it's going to be set to an empty string. So the person will play the game, and at some point they might get a high score and enter their name. And then I want to keep track of that name while we're playing the game. Now down here, I want a new computed property, show high score of type Boolean. Now, we have two important variables here, two view models, game view model and high score view model. And I want to determine when to show high score. Okay, so we have our game view model. Now I want to show the high score. First of all, the first condition is that the game is actually over. And in addition, I want this to be a new high score. So let's do is new high score, and let's use game view model dot score. Now, there is no such function called isNewHighScore. So I would like to implement that. In our view model. So I'm going to go up to HighScore view model, command click on that, and jump to definition. Now, under the init over here, let's create a new function, isNewHighScore, that accepts a parameter score int and returns a Boolean. Okay, so now if the score is less than or equal to 0, then I don't want to store it, right? If you got 0 points, then it doesn't deserve to be added to the high scores. Now, what about this less than, right? It doesn't make sense that the score would be negative, but it doesn't hurt that I checked less than. So in general, checking for equality is sometimes a little bit dangerous, and many times inequality is safer, actually. So I prefer testing if score is less than or equal to 0, even though it's a little bit strange. So if the score is less than or equal to 0, then this is not a high score, right? We return false. Else, if there is a minimum high score, then do something. And if there is no minimum high score, then just return true. So this might be a little bit unclear at this point, and same with the min-high score. Now we haven't defined any variable called min-high score, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to create a computed property. Let's go up here. I'm going to create var min-high score int 64 optional. So if high scores dot is empty, then return nil. Else, return the minimal value. So return high scores dot, let's take the last high score because it's ordered in descending order, so the smallest high score is the last one. Now this is the high score entity and we want the actual score. So that's taken care of. Okay, so let's go back down here. So if let min high score, so if it's not nil, in other words, the list is not empty, so a high score already exists, then return the following. So if we have an actual new high score, so if min high score is less than score, in other words, we've scored higher than the lowest high score. Or high scores dot count is less than 100. So 100 will be the maximal number of scores that we're allowing. So if we have, say, 32, or let's change 100 to 10. Suppose we only want to display 10 high scores. And so far we have 3 high scores posted, right? Say 100 points, 90 points, and 80 points. Right, 190 and 80. And now the player scored a 30, which is not very good. On the other hand, if we only have 3 high scores and we're allowed to have up to 10, this is actually less than 10, so up to 9, then let's just add it and it will be the lowest high score that we've added. Now the next thing I'd like to do is to understand if this code return true is actually correct. So we have to understand, what does it mean to reach this part of the code? Well, it does mean that the score is 0, so that is promising, right? It might be a new high score. Right? How do I know score is greater than 0? Because this condition has failed. In addition, let's look at this condition, if let min high score. What does this mean? If this fails, if that condition fails, that means min high score is just nil. But let's recall, what does that mean? That means the high score list is empty. So if we have a positive high score and the high score list is empty, should we add this score to the high score list? Yes, of course. Right? If I get a score of 3 points and the high score list is empty, then yes, we should include it. So this is correct. Now notice this logic, I have to admit, is a little bit confusing. If I were to look for a bug in this program, I would look here, okay? But the advantage of this function isNewHighScore is that it's highly localized. So if something doesn't work, it's relatively easy to find where the bug is at. But indeed, this is a little bit confusing. Maybe we could simplify the logic a little, but I found that this is clear, at least to me. Now there is one thing bothering me here, and that's the number 10. Maybe I'd like it to be 100. Maybe I'd like it to be 30. So I want to define a new constant. So max high score, or max num high scores, max number of high scores. I'm going to copy this and just go up here and define let max number of high scores equal to 100. I'm going to allow 100 high scores. Let's go back down here, and I'd like actually 100. So let's go less than or equal to. Okay, so we have high scores count is less than or equal to max num of high scores. Then, yeah, we can add it. We can add this new high score. Okay, great. Okay, and we're done. So have an amazing day and see you next.